My name is Michael Stocking, or in Stupor. Thank you firstly for inviting me to speak here, particularly as you've got no idea what I'm going to show, which is kind of brave. But I'll be building on work that we've done before. And I'm going to be telling you a short story, or a bit of history around why you'd bother to do this thing in the first place. So every presentation seems to have one of these slides. Seems to be some kind of law. So that's mine. Sorry about that. This is a guy called John Leland, and he's been the inspiration for everything I've done actually in digital access in the last 10 years. He was an antiquarian. He was appointed by Henry VIII in 1533, and Henry VIII, a man not to be refused, said, could you go and look around the monasteries and palaces of his kingdom and find out what great books he had, because he didn't know. And I'm going to read this out, because this has inspired me for 10 years, and hopefully it might be relevant today. I was a few years ago at Glastonbury in Somerset, where the most ancient and at the same time the most famous monastery in our whole island is located. I had intended to refresh my mind, wearied with a long course of study, when a burning desire to read and to learn inflamed me afresh. So I straightway went to the library, which is not open to all, in order to examine most diligently all the relics of most sacred antiquity, of which there is so great a number that it is not easily paralleled anywhere else in Britain. Scarcely had I crossed the threshold when the mere sight of the most ancient books took my mind with an awe or stupor of some kind, and for that reason I stopped in my tracks a little while. Then, having paid my respects to the deity of the place, I examined all the bookcases for some days with the greatest interest. Three things jump out of this. One is the significance of the material that we work with, and sometimes we take this for granted. I've been lucky enough to work on things like Magna Carta, Doomsday Book, Lindisfarne Gospels, many others, and you become a bit blasé, but these are the cornerstones of our cultural heritage we're working with. Secondly, it took John Leland 6 years to travel around England, granting access to the museums, to the monasteries and to the palaces. Journey across medieval England was no fun, and he had to get permission to examine these collections. And it struck me that in some ways we're not so far removed from that 500 years later. The collections are still dispersed. They're dispersed geographically, they're dispersed digitally. You might have to go to many different websites to find the material that you want. You still need permission, in some ways, to access their collections. It's been my job, really, for the last 10 years in working with different institutions to try and break down some of these barriers. So when I learned about IIIF a few years ago, I was pretty excited. And the code name for what we've been doing and what's become known as Inquire became internally the Leland Project. So let's talk a bit about that. A few years ago, we spent about 6 months working with the British Library on an exhibition called Growing Knowledge. And this was an exhibition really designed to say, well, what does it look like when there are no more reading rooms? What does it look like when everything's digital? And we spent time with researchers and with academics, understanding their sort of workflow from hypothesis to aggregation of material, to filtering, to examination, to annotation, and to export. And we built a bit of software that, so there's a screenshot there, which is totally unintelligible. Nobody had a clue how to use it, although it was extremely clever. And therefore of no use to anybody other than me. That then became a version of the software that we now call Inquire, which we built to say, what if you built a bit of software that could surface anything, images in almost any format, audio and video, and would run on any platform. And we launched that a number of years ago. That then became a bit of software that you've seen demoed briefly by Stu, I think, today, called, well, it's called Inquire, but this is the digital Bodleian. So the Bodleian have used that as their primary means of surfacing all their collections. That was launched was it June? I think that was launched, Matt, last summer, something like that, June last year, and it's been very successful, although somehow didn't manage to win a Web, it was not shortlisted for a Webby in the last couple of months, but got beaten by an animated GIF, which is a little galling. The brief then for Inquire 2.0, which is what we're launching now, is that it should be IIIF compliant, which original Digital Bodleian wasn't. It should be fully responsive. Some of our clients are telling us that up to 40% of their traffic on their websites is coming from mobile devices. We have to accommodate that. And that it should be open source, that actually it becomes something that everybody can use. So this is Inquire 2.0, a radically revised interface. Also designed to work on mobile devices. So what we're going to do is do a demo. Because frankly, I think if you're just talking over a video, that's just cowardly. So it's not, I can understand what you're doing. Okay, so this is Inquire 2.0. What we've done here is if we've gone in and we've done a harvest of a number of collections, a number of manifests. So we've harvested some stuff from Stanford, some stuff from Biblissima, some stuff from the Bodleian, and some stuff from the Welcome. And we capped it at about 1,000 records per institution. So you can see there we have about 3,600 records, I think, in total. Let me just log into the platform while we're here. So. It seems to have forgotten me over lunch. Okay, now it knows who I am. So it's picked up my search history and it's picked up a collection I've made. Okay, so there's authentication there. Authentication can be granular. You can have different access rights based on what you want to allow people to do. One of the things that came back from the British Library research was people wanted to view results in a very different ways, bless you. So you can view things in a grid format here, or a list format. Let's go back to grid. Let's do it that way. Perhaps if you've got a different size screen, if you're working on a mobile device or a tablet, you might want to have your results slightly smaller. Maybe we'll just take them back slightly larger. Maybe if you've got a bigger screen, we can display a few more results. So maybe let's display, run that query again, and that will display 50 results. So we can do that. Users get to customize their desktop. Now, one of the things we can do is we can examine the metadata on something. So if we click on an object, the metadata here shows where it's come from. This is from Stanford. It's got a publication date. We just sucked a little bit of metadata in over here. And the way we've done that is we've taken the harvest. We've harvested the manifests. There's a manifest which is a list of manifests, if that makes sense. So it's a list of items, and each of those items has a big load of content attached to it. All of that is ingested into a Solr index, which is driving all the search. So all of that's in there. So this is from the Bodleian. Let's have a look at that. That's a picture of Athens from 1793. So we're again using OpenSeaDragon here as a default mechanism. This is a framework rather than a bit of software. So we've used these tools. It can be modified. You can do what you like with that. If we go back, we can scroll down, look at maybe what we call a compound item. See, Chicken Charlie has 5 objects attached to it, which means it's a little short book, looks like some music. These are single image objects. That codex, which is coming from Biblissima, has got 43 attached to it. Let's go in and look at that. Okay, cool, you can scroll through those. Double click on one of those, pull that in. And we had the same experience. But because it knows this is a compound item, we've now got some navigation tools up here so we can cycle through in our page turner, or we can use our slider and navigate to wherever you want to go. And the metadata will update if there's metadata at that kind of granular level. Let's clear that search. So we can browse and we can have a look at things in a way that you may have seen before. But what if we want to run a search? Let's search for something. Let's search for king. It's giving me some prompts based on the index that are in there, but we'll ignore Kingston and kingship and we'll just go for king. And oh my, we have some interesting stuff there. So we have some stuff you'd expect from the Bodleian, a treasure binding, but we have some quite cool musical stuff. So what we'll do now is we'll go over here and we'll say, we've got a collection here. Let's rename this collection and call it music. One of the things scholars told us they wanted to do was to basically aggregate material into a collection that they can do stuff with. They can come back to it later, they can share it with other people. So there's a collection called music. Let's use a drag and drop. We'll drag an item in there. Let's reveal them as we go. Let's go long. Oh, nice. Let's put that in there too. Let's put that in there as well. Okay, so we now have a little collection of musical items. I think they're all from Stanford, actually, but they clearly could be from anywhere. We could put that one in as well from somewhere else. Then if you want to view our collection, there it is. So we've done a couple of the pieces now that the research told us that the way people wanted to work. You've got this searching, you've got a kind of filtering mechanism going on, you've got an aggregation piece. Maybe now we want to make a note. And Blues in My Heart, there's a note on there already. Let's clear that one, make a new note, and say add to Blues collection. Okay, ping. So that's a note. That's a private note. That belongs to me. Only I can see it. It only belongs to that object. What we could do is we could put a tag in there as well. Let's put a tag in there called Blues. So what we could do there is say, great, that's a tag called Blues. Now that tag can then be aggregated back into the index. So next time somebody searched for Blues, there might be some material that surfaced that wasn't otherwise surfaced. And this is a way of thinking about a collection that becomes more intelligent the more it's used. So you can put metadata in. The user-generated content goes in. If both of those are searched against, it becomes a more powerful search tool. So I can put notes, I can put tags, and I can put public comments that are viewable by everybody, but you kind of get the idea. So now what I might want to do, having said, here's my collection, I've made it all, I can do some stuff with it. So I could rename it, I could email it, or download it. If I want to download it, there's some options here. I can say I want the asset file. You know, this is all configurable. If you have certain anxieties about releasing your material and the licensing doesn't permit it, then you don't allow for that. If you want to release a 40-pixel stamp, then that's fine too. If you want to release a 4,000 by 4,000 pixel JPEG, then you can do that. The XML is the metadata that's provided by the institution and any user-generated content. And the RIS format is obviously for citation. So if you want to cite something, it's a digital citation there. So bang, you can download that and get rid of that and send it down to yourself. If you want to send it to somebody else, you can do the same thing and email stuff out if you wanted to do that. So the idea is that it's freely available. If you wanted to do something different, you could actually post it to Facebook, you could tweet about it, you could add a Facebook like, you can print it. These things can all be granular. You know, you can have access rights all the way down the line in terms of who's allowed access to stuff, but then also in terms, obviously, of what you do with the material. So you can get it out of the collection. The danger, of course, is that what you do is you say, well, we're de-siloing things at the back end. We're getting rid of all the silos. But then you've got this kind of silo here, and all the activity happens in this space. And one of the things we were told very clearly is stuff needs to get out of this space, back into the world in which people work. So you can do that too. Okay, so let's clear all that and go back to that space. And this is one of the really compelling things for me, is we can start to use some filtering against the sources that we've got in here. So there's the Wellcome and Bellissima and Stanford, and there's some collection types, there's some date ranges and stuff in here. And I can scarcely conceive of the power of this if you start to actually ingest tens of millions of items. I mean, can you imagine being able to filter against different collection types and say, yeah, I want to search against Stanford and Yale and Harvard and the Beard and the BNF. I want to do all that, and I want these date ranges, and I want these collection types. Boom, and it's all in one place. So let's say we want to, actually, this won't do the Wellcome, sorry. There was a really cool item I found in the Bodleian. So, sorry, Wellcome, sorry, Christine. Let's go to the Bodleian, and let's say I want to look at maps, which is right there. So I've done this filtering in real time. And again, other thing that freaks me out here is we don't know where this is coming from. Well, I know where this is coming from, there's Matt, but this is coming from all kinds of different servers. So this inquire is running on an Azure stack somewhere. We could be hitting the DLCS for some of the Wellcome images. The Bodleian is Matt's servers in Oxford. The Stanford servers are probably in Stanford, but this could be built on an Amazon S3 infrastructure somewhere else. It's all coming in different times, in different places. So this is coming from Matt, and there's a really nice map here, Sebastian Münster. So to finish up the little demo here, so what is this? This is the first printed map of the American continent from 1540. So I was trying to figure out where is New York. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm guessing, no, is that Florida? I'm guessing there? Something like that. So yeah, that's close enough. So that's the best answer. So that's the power of IIIF. The power of IIIF is to say that what we can do is we can actually go and harvest half a dozen different collections, synthesize them into an index, put that together. Let me tell you, that took a morning to do. And then we've got the power of IIIF to say, well, I want this, and I don't want this, and I want to do all these kinds of different things in any given way. And if you want to access the manifest, you can pop up the manifest and do whatever you like with that, as you wish. So there's been no other way of doing this before, and I think John Leland would be proud. Right. Okay, so, but unfortunately this story doesn't end well, as you know. So 1538, John Leland goes to Glastonbury and has his tour and is struck with awe and stupor and thinks this is the most amazing thing he's seen. And hopefully we're picking up where he left off. But the next year, Thomas Cromwell's men turn up and tear down the roof and the abbey, and the library is dispersed. And there are stories of manuscripts being torn up, the bindings ripped off and the bindings taken and the jewels prized out of them, the gold melted down. And in the winds blowing through the streets of Glastonbury, all the vellum sheets tumbling down the streets of Glastonbury and being used to scour out candlesticks. And we will never know what was lost when that happened. And part of what we're doing is clearly about preservation here. But part of that collection does survive, and part of it's in the Parker Library, and part of it's in the Bodleian, and part of it's in the British Library. So it does exist. But one of the things we're trying to do here is to say we need to hang on to stuff, we need to provide access, and we need to stay sane. Because unfortunately, John Leland went mad in 1547, and some people think it was the loss of all the books that drove him insane. So if IIIF can do anything, maybe it can preserve your sanity. So thank you very much. If you want to know more, you can contact me, or there's a website about Inquire, and Inquire is now available as open source software under the MIT license on GitHub, and that is the URL to download it and have a play. So thank you very much.